final. The men's 10,000 meters, there are the records. And NCAA meet record held by Suleiman Niambui. That's significant because this young man, Edward Cheserek, just a junior here at Oregon, has 11 individual NCAA titles in his not even 3-year career so far. 2 of those titles are teams involved. Suleiman Niambui for UTEP had 15 total titles when he left and his eligibility was completed. He was also 29 years old, by the way. If Cheserek can complete the double here at these NCAA championships, with a year of eligibility remaining, he will tie Suleiman Niambui. It was an NCAA championship title that no one ever thought would be matched, much less eclipsed. And we are about to see if this young man can tie that record with still 1 year to go.
You know, Dwight, this is a slow pace. This is interesting. They're playing into the hands of Ed Cheserek. He's going to run the 5,000 meters in a couple of days. He doesn't want a fast pace. He's not going to be up front in the beginning. And this is not a jog, but this is not a fast pace. So we'll see what happens and how tactical this is. They're playing into the hands of the guys that can sprint, unless somebody decides that they're going to man up here someplace before the first half of this race is over with.
Well, like every event here in these semifinals, 24 athletes made it through to get here. 12 from each, the West and the East regionals. The West regionals were held at the University of Kansas in Lawrence, and the conditions were abominable. And then the East regionals were held in Jacksonville, Florida. 24 athletes in this 10,000 meter final. We'll try to identify some of them as they're going around. We've already said certainly not as much as we can about Edward Cheserek, but he can pretty much do it all. He's got the speed to go off of a slow pace, or he can absolutely hammer the pace or follow someone who is doing so and still win it from anywhere on the track.
Well, his speed is just an amazing thing, and he's back there on the inside rail, about 3 people back from the lead person, sitting in 6th place. You know, where do you begin with Edward Cheserek? He did something I don't think I've ever seen anything better done indoors this year, and he won the there he is right there on your screen, won the 5,000 meters at the NCAA Indoor Championships, ran 13 minutes and 40 seconds for a 5K. If you've ever been on the roads, think of how fast that is. And that's an average of 4 minutes and 26 seconds per mile. He rested 30 minutes. That's what he had for the rest. And the 10-distance medley relay came on the track, of which he was anchoring for Oregon. And he went out and ran the fastest mile ever run indoors at the NCAA Championships, anchoring, and his mile time was 3 minutes and 54 seconds with just 30 minutes rest after winning the 5K at a national title collegiate meet. Unbelievable stuff.
And those are 2 of his total NCAA titles, which total 13, where he was part of 18. The other 11, including 3 consecutive cross-country championships.
Jacob Thompson from Kentucky, a very good runner. Ran right in the 4:05, 4:07 range. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he's a Kentucky born and bred. Went to NC State, decided he really missed Kentucky and family and all that, came back and has continued to grow and do well for head coach Edric Floreal down at Kentucky, and he is right now leading this race. He's another guy that we'll probably talk about running is in the pack right now and is not pushing the pace. Futsum Zaina Salese from Eritrea, whose family came to this country in 2007. And got quite a talented guy who's trained very hard, goes to Northern Arizona State, where the altitude is a mere 7,000 feet, and your body gets used to making more red blood cells because the air is so much thinner.
It's Northern Arizona University, NAU.
What did I say, college today?
You said state.
State,
yeah.
Excuse me. That's right.
Yes. Flagstaff, they've got great facilities. They've got the altitude that's built in. They've had a lot of very, very good runners that have gone there and benefited from those conditions. There he is on your screen, number 13, Zaina Salese. It's early days, as they would say in Britain. Early days in this 10,000 meters. Everybody just sort of shaking things out. There's still a bit of a bunch of athletes, but still
things have changed here, Dwight.
Led by Thompson of Duke as they start to string out a little bit better, which always makes me happier because I don't want to see athletes going down and get stepped on and spiked and hurt.
Thompson is second right now. The first lap was a mere 72 seconds. which joggers who are in their 20s or 30s and do a decent amount of running might be able to run one lap with these guys. "24 runners in the race, no less." That is Sean Thompson, the senior from Duke, who has decided to kind of pick things up. He's run 28 minutes and 47 seconds up at Mount Sac when he went out there to get a time qualifier for this meet. There's only been worldwide 5 major 10,000 meter races this year to try and get qualifying times. Peyton Jordan is the one in the United States everybody goes to early on to try and get a fast time at the NCAA level to get here. But it's a grueling race. It's really tough. It does take quite a bit out of the body, and it's hard for many of these guys to come back in 2 days and run their best at 5,000 meters to recover that fast. Their pulse rates here, because they're distance runners, that and the training they do lowers the pulse rate down quite a bit. So where resting pulse normally for people is 72 if you're sitting watching television, for these guys it could easily be in the 40s or maybe the 50s max. But the resting pulse is lowered. In a race like this, the pulse goes up to 165 to 170 or 75 for most of these guys, and they can maintain that for 20 or 30 minutes. They are so fit. The pace now is picked up to a 66 last 400 meters. Luke Trainer from Tulsa right up there in the lead pack.
I mean, if you're one of the other 23 guys, Larry, and you know what Edward Cheserek can do, what on earth do you do?
Well, the difficulty, Dwight, in major part is you know you can't outkick him, and everybody knows that. I think now, let me add this. We haven't talked this about Cheserek. He's had some quiet, minor injuries this outdoor season. He lost a little bit of training time. He actually lost a race when he came back. Robert Johnson, the head coach, will say that he's fit and everything is okay now, and I'm not doubting that. He's got an ability to get back and get sharp pretty quickly. Does Cheserek, and obviously supremely confident against this competition based on having won 11 titles. So a slower pace plays even more into his hands because of his raw speed. I would think a guy like Zainis Alessi at some point in time wants to make sure that this is going to be close to a 28 minute and 20 second 10,000 meter pace. I can't guarantee that, but that's his hope, is to force the pace and see what Cheserek has left. The other guys are probably planning on doing the best they can, and they might be a minute slower or half a minute slower.
Kentucky sophomore Jacob Thompson continuing to lead, and then number 1 Eamon Terrer of Campbell is there, and then Edward Cheserek tucked in to the 3rd position. And with 18 laps to go, we will step aside for a little while, come back and update you as to the progress of this final.
29:45. It has been ebbing and flowing. When we went to commercial, they were running 67-second laps. Came back 3 minutes later, it was down to 71 seconds. So it's all over the place.
All right, so let me fix that, because I only saw one guy from Campbell, and it is, as you mentioned, not Eamon Terrer from Campbell. That's spectacular. They got 2 guys in the final. Lawrence Kipkowicz, just a sophomore from Campbell.
And Kipkowicz's dad is named Paul Koskay, who was a silver medalist at the British Commonwealth Games at the distances as well, at 10,000 meters, going back obviously a decade plus ago. So he comes by his genes well. And Campbell is building up their track program, and they're located down outside of Raleigh, I think it's about 60 miles outside of town. So hats off to them to run with the big boys here. And hats off to their athletic director for giving them exposure and them running so well here at the NCAAs.
I'm only counting 3 guys that are not in that pack that is sort of 12 meters apart from each other. So 21 of the original 24 athletes are in this race, with just a little less than half of the race concluded. In fact, half of the race concluded just now. So that's pretty impressive.
14 minutes, 44 seconds for the first 5,000 meters. Things will change. They will get faster here. We could see a real searing last 800 meters or something like that. It depends who is with Cheserek and maybe Zainas Alesi as well. I think Thompson is a good kicker in there too. He's got very good speed. This is comfortable for everybody. They are just, look at how close together they all are. That's an amazing shot right there.
And I'm just checking the weather, and it really hasn't moved at all. It's still 70 degrees and a little bit of sun out there and some clouds. Maybe not absolutely ideal conditions for 10,000 meter running, but certainly could be worse. We had a lot more heat last year, as you recall.
While we got a quick minute here, Cheserek has been nominated for the Bill Bowerman Award, one of 10 men to get nominated every year. He wasn't selected, but they had him up on the stage. Ryan Fenton was interviewing him. Here's the conversation and the way it went. So you had to take your exam, and the roads were washed out with torrential rains, and he said, and Edward says, I had to get there. So he said, what did you do? He said, I just started to run. Got up one morning, had to go. I knew I had to go for the exam. The exam was 60 miles away. And he said, I ran for an hour and a half, and he said, I just took a break and I started to eat a little bit, some things I brought with me. I ran for 2 more hours, took a little bit more. Then he said, and then I ran for 3 hours in a row. And he said, I stopped because I was feeling a little tired, and the audience roars. All right, so at that point, he's been running for 6 hours. He covers the 60 miles, gets there, gets something to eat, goes to bed, gets up and passes his exam the next day to come to St. Benedict's School in Newark, New Jersey, which is a Catholic school where they do board 8 or 9, even 10 athletes that can't afford to come type thing as what they do for their international mission, let's call it. And the coaches swear that they did not know of his ability. He had only run very limited amount over there and came here within a year, is just starring in the United States like crazy as he enters as a freshman, as now on the dean's list here at the University of Oregon. Hats off to him for what he's accomplished in the classroom and here.
Well, things have slowed down considerably, and this group has really bunched up, which is very, very dangerous. You've got to have some room to run, and that forces athletes into the outer lanes, as Kip Koech has now picked up the lead after Thompson, for about half the race, was doing the pacing, but it is now even slower, which, if I'm not mistaken, plays more into the hands of Edward Cheserek. He's getting a nice rest here and won't have to break out a sprint for all that long. Remember, he's coming back for the double in the 5,000 meter distance on Friday. Jonathan Green of Georgetown is there as well, up near the front. But this is a pretty tightly bunched group of 20+ runners.
The dedication to be a 10K runner and cross-country runner, believe me, is as tough as anything easily in the sport. These athletes rarely take a week or two off in the summer. They might get a break after this meet, but if you're a sophomore, junior, the fact that you come to the NCAAs just whets your appetite for more success. I've read stories in preparing for this whole thing where I had 4 guys that I read said, after the season was over, I just rededicated myself to do more and do it better. And they will train on their own in the summers and probably 4 or 5 days a week, put in real mileage so that they report for cross country really fit. And they do this on their own. Some schools have cross country camps in late August or mid-August. That's fine, but the dedication here goes round and round, year-round. And I just want to acknowledge the tough task that these guys do, and many of them are amongst the best academic students. There are studies out there, while we have 9 laps to go, there are studies out there showing that the University of Illinois has done that it improves in seniors who jog and do some walking. And it also has, in a study that they did, 3rd grade, 5th grade, 7th grade, and 9th graders, that it improved their memory and their focus. It is, and another thing, Dwight, when as many track fans know, I went through a bout of cancer 10 years ago. I was treated at Sloan Kettering in New York, and everything works out just fine. Sloan now has a department that they've started, which is focusing on the value of exercise and containing, or I'd say containing, after the fact, and helping people. They feel from their studies that it could be valuable in slowing down the cancer coming back. So it's amazing that it may have an effect there. They already know it helps memory disorder and motion disorder issues.
Well, the pack is now coming around to about 8 laps remaining, so we will step aside and come back with the finishing laps of this men's 10,000 meters. Edward Cheserek now up in the leading group, third as we go with 8 laps to remain. Laps remaining in the men's 10,000 meter final, and now it's a race. It's Edward Cheserek, the defending champion from the University of Oregon, the junior with 13 total NCAA titles to his name, followed closely by Futsam Selassie of Northern Arizona University, and then from Colorado, we haven't talked much about him, but Pierce Murphy. He is definitely a threat, especially off a pace like this. And Gabe Gonzalez, the Razorback from Fayetteville, right in there in scoring position for the Hogs as Cheserek moves out into the outside of lane 1, just tempting Zina Selassie to go in there on the rail. 2 laps remaining, and things have not picked up so much that it isn't going to take the sting out of Edward Cheserek's kick.
Well, while we were away, they ran laps of 64.5, 66 and change. The last one was 67. Edward just seems to be waiting and waiting. I assume he's going to have plenty left despite some niggling, injury issues that bothered him for a couple of months earlier this outdoor season. But he certainly is acting like he's got plenty left. These guys know each other. Zina Selassie from Eritrea, Edward from Kenya, type thing. They've raced against each other before. Zina Selassie showing great promise as a youngster from Indianapolis, and had a great high school career, finishing second in things like the Nike Cross. He might have won the Nike Cross Nationals, but he was second in a couple of other national cross-country championships, and has just gotten better and better the last couple of years.
All right, they're going to start winding it up now. There are 6 athletes in contention, led by Edward Cheserek, marked closely by Zina Selassie of Northern Arizona. Gabe Gonzalez is right there for Arkansas, as is Pierce Murphy for Colorado.
Jacob Thompson
is there as well.
Thompson's got good speed. I'm sure he's just marking his time right now. He's 4th. And things have definitely heated up here. 65 seconds on that last lap. Here we go.
And there goes Cheserek. He just shifted to another gear. He figures, I can sprint for 300 meters and not do much in the way of damage. There is no answer. Cheserek now has a 5, 6, 7 meter lead.
Gabe Gonzalez hanging on quite well. Let's see what happens here. And there's Thompson trying to move up to see if he can nail down 2nd or 3rd. He's now in 4th place. Cheserek with just a mobile 1 lap to go. And everybody in the home stretch is standing and cheering Cheserek.
So Cheserek will win individual title number 12. 14th overall, Zina Selassie 2nd. 6 points for Arkansas for Gonzalez's 4th place finish.